Hello, everyone. Great to see so many of you here today, and I guess I can say happy 2026. As the case may be. We are very pleased to have the President of the General Assembly, Her Excellency Annalena Baerbock, here to speak with you all. I hope that you had the chance to follow her speech this morning and some of the discussion in the General Assembly and statements by member states to sort of set her priorities for the remainder of her session this year, the 80th session. Just to let you know, she will make very brief remarks, and then we want to get to as many of your questions as possible, but we will have to finish at 2:45. So we will have about 40 minutes for an exchange with the PGA. And so if you could keep your questions brief, she will try to get to as many of them as possible. So without further ado, PGA Baerbock, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon also from my side, and as I said in the General Assembly Hall this morning, in ordinary times I would also wish you a Happy New Year. But looking around the world today and the last 2 weeks from Caracas to Tehran, frankly, happiness is in short supply. But anyway, personally, all the best for you. But with regard to the last weeks, but also the last months, I underlined in my priority speech, as you might have followed this morning, that we are at a more decisive crossroads than at the beginning of this 80th session. The multilateral system is not only under pressure, the multilateral system is under heavy attack. It is increasingly evident that not all of us are singing from the same songbook anymore. Not all are as invested in the Charter and in international law and human rights. But we know as well that big systems do not collapse in one big bang. Most of the time they crumble piece by piece. And therefore, I underlined in my priority speech this morning that my main priority as President of the General Assembly of the United Nations for the next 237 days will be to defend this institution, its charter, and the principles enshrined in it. And I called this morning on member states to stand up and step up, to come together to build a cross-regional alliance to protect and promote the principles of the Charter. I invited member states to symbolically recommit to our shared principles and values by signing the 80th anniversary Charter poster ahead of Charter Day, as some of you might remember, was done in the 75th session as well. And we heard that many member states in the room echoed this strong call to stand up in these times for the Charter, for the principles, not only in speeches on Sunday, but also in the daily work as representatives of their countries on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesday, when we discuss and vote on resolution. As outlined as well this morning, another key priority will be the further implementation of the UN80 reform initiative. The political and diplomatic ecosystem has undergone drastic changes, and we can't expect the old ways of working to suffice. The UN80 initiative, while not coming at the most desirable time or in the best condition, is overdue. And this is, I think, the very positive part of the last months, that member states are embracing this reform way more strongly than one could have expected because of the global pressure we are facing all together, especially with regard to Workstream 2 related to the work in the General Assembly on the mandate review and also making our own work more efficient and fit. We have not only the first zero draft for resolution, but also strong engagement by member states. And again, this was heard also during the priority debate this morning, that member states even said they want to do deeper reforms than we discussed before. Third, the selection of the new Secretary General will be the other main priority this year. And I announced this morning that interactive dialogues with the SG candidates have been scheduled for the week of April 20th. During this interactive dialogue, each candidate will have the opportunity to present her or his vision statement, answer a member state's question, and engage with civil society organizations. Our choice of who will lead this organization is a chance to send a clear message in this turbulent time about who we are and what the United Nations stands for. The next Secretary General will not only be the face and voice of this institution, the choice will also demonstrate whether this organization and all their member states truly serve all of humanity, of which half are women and girls. And the choice will also determine how we address pressing global challenges from conflicts and climate change to inequality. As we all know, and as we have seen in the last weeks and months, none of this will be easy. But I would like to underline again what I also underlined in the beginning of this session. The work of this organization has never been easy. It was not built for easy victories, but it was about achieving lasting peace. It was about the resolve never to give up. And this is exactly what we need right now, the resolve to stand with the Charter, with its principle, and do that every day, no matter how heavy the headwinds are. And in this regard, I wish you a happy new year, even though it will be a happy new year. And I'm looking forward to your questions.
Okay, wonderful. I know we have a number of questions. Pam, if you want to take the first question. Oh, sorry, Valeria. So I didn't see your hand, Valeria. Yeah, I didn't see your hand. Happy New Year, Valeria, please.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year, Madam President, and Happy New Year. Thank you so much for this press briefing. I'll be quick. Thank you on behalf of Anka, and it's Valeria Rebecca from ANSA Newswire. So, about the selection of the next SG. We know the principle, you explain all the process in a very clear way. But my question is, what will be different from the previous time, let's say the last time, because before that, it was not like, there was not interactive dialogue, etc. But there is something that is going to be different from the previous time. Thank you so much.
Well, first of all, even though this is a bit boring for media people, because you are being called to give the news of the day, but in these times, and this is why I made it also so strong in my priority speech, preserving and defending what is most important for us is the biggest task. So also about this process, it's not about that everything has to be new, but it's rather to build on the little steps of progress we have seen in the last 10 years, and especially 10 years ago, when for the first time we did actually have public hearings and also really an interactive dialogues where member states could engage, where civil society could engage. And as I said, as we are not living in ordinary times, it is very important that in the joint letter, so between the General Assembly and the Security Council, even though there have been diverse views, as we could also see in the revitalization resolution, these openness, transparency, and interactivity has been confirmed. And I will build on that one as outlined in the joint letter. So we will have the hearings. They will be very interactive. And again, maybe 10 years ago, it was normal to speak about fighting for at least not ending, but fighting back the climate crisis, standing up for justice around the world, for human rights, for the SDGs. We have heard different opinions about these topics in the last months as well. So therefore, the interactive dialogue will also focus on the issue that we are looking for a candidate, and many, many member states made that very clear that this is the expectation from them towards the PGA, who is standing with both foots on the principles of the Charter of the United Nations and standing on all three pillars, which are interconnected, so peace and security, development and climate crisis, and human rights. So In the run-up of these hearings, I will ask also member states to embrace these topics, as they have asked me to do so today also in the priority speech. And besides this, the engagement of civil society, also compared to 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I mean, we have even more modern techniques right now, but I think it's also very important to have people in the room. And we have seen also the start of an engagement from civil society, but also from media, from different governments in the past, to have other events and other hearings, either in their countries or national hearings. I heard also from some of the PRs from worldwide that they would have different formats, and I heard from you that you are also very interested as media to have similar events like in the last years. So this will be the combination of all of it. And I think even more than before, it's not only at the end who this organization will choose, but also the way the process has been conducted, and also which kind of candidates presented him or herself in this process, and the whole issue about the debate, because as I said, some of the topics which have been just like common sense before are way more controversial right now.
Wonderful. Sorry, Edie, I'd seen your hand up. Sorry, Pam, and then do you mind to go third? Sorry, I had missed Edie. Edie, and then Pam, and then Desi, and then we will do another round.
Thank you very much, Madam President. A couple of follow-ups. First, are you expecting a similar timetable where there will be straw polls in the Security Council and a selection of the Secretary General sometime during the summer? And secondly, have you gotten indications from member states that there will be, let's say, at least half a dozen candidates, or because at the moment there aren't. So have you gotten any indications of that? And thirdly, as I recall, 10 years ago, I think there were only 1 or 2 civil society members who were allowed to question the candidates. Are you thinking of possibly expanding that? Thank you.
Okay, we have a number of questions on the SG. Just to get a show of hands, are there other questions related to the SG selection that people had? Dulce, I see your hand is up. Evelyn, I see. So let's just take the SG selection process questions together and then get those answered and move on. Dulce, yes. What was your question?
My question is, who's going to go first the week of April 20th? Thanks.
Okay, so a lineup. Evelyn, did you have a question?
Which candidate, you mean,
Yeah,
goes
which-
first? Yeah.
And then Evelyn, you had a question.
Yes, thank you. Will we be able to hear the questioning of the candidates, not in the very high up seats, but close on the floor, whether we ask a question or not? Because 8 years ago, we were able to sit rather close, and we heard.
Will you be able to? Will press be able to attend the interactive dialogues that they
Yes,
have with member
exactly.
states?
Sorry.
Okay.
Inside the room.
Yes. Okay. Excellent. So those are our questions for. Sorry, Yancho, as well. An SG question.
Thank you, Lanis. Thank you, Madam President. It has been 2 months since the start of the selection process. So it seems to be very slow in the nomination process. So what's the reason behind that? Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Great. So we have.
Well, first of all, we are a living institution, so this is a living process. So if you have any recommendations, like we heard, I mean, we're really open for it, because this happens only every 5 years. So this is obviously another milestone in being more transparent and more inclusive, and also from just practical side points, preparing it as best as we can. Having said this, as we all know, this house is under heavy pressure, not only politically, but also financially. So some even logistic parts, which sound like really common, are not the easiest one. For example, if we have parallel processes here, which we try to limit under the UNRWA reform program, but still we are having them. So in spring, we have many, many activities here in the house, so even finding rooms. And then having the finances, because not every member state paid their contribution on time and due, affects every meetings and every hearings we are having this. I'm saying this because, as you all know, we finalized the budget with the fifth committee, but nothing is great in this house with regard to the liquidity crisis. I mentioned that also in our priority speeches. So under these conditions, we have set up in the weeks of the 20th of April, and obviously it depends how many candidates will be nominated by then, how many meetings we will have in that week. We are planning, but this is why I called for early nominations, and this is why also, notwithstanding our joint letter, underlined that nominations should be tabled until the 1st of April, so we can enable participations not only from civil society, but also from journalists and others. There will definitely be, again, live streaming also from the room. But we would like to enable, as you also mentioned yourself, as many people as we can have in the room. With regard to the nominations, and again, this is team sports here. So I also learned this morning from PRs, which have been here already 10 years ago, that also back then, the first nomination, the official one, we are speaking about official ones, was also last time before the holidays break, and most of the other one came in February. So different than the impression might be, it's not that now everything is way later. The joint letter has been sent out earlier, so everybody thinks now the nomination should come. But again, being very realistic and having been a candidate for different positions myself in the past in the political sphere, there are always different interests. So it's not always the best to be the first out with your application and nomination. So there are the interests of the candidates. Then there is the interest of the member states. The member states called for very, very early nominations, and this is why the PGA, speaking on behalf of the member states, set a timetable which enables also member states to get very early engaged. The Security Council, again, has a different thought on that, because they are the Security Council and not the General Assembly, and neither the candidates. So they decided to put in the joint letter even a timeline for the council deliberations, which is July. And again, we have to synchronize all these different aspects, and this is why we proposed the hearings starting on the 20th of April. And in this regard, as you heard me very loud and clear today, but the days before, yes, I'm calling for further nominations because, as we heard also from the member states in revitalization, there have been discussions, as you mentioned, about straw polls. There have been discussions about different hearings. And if we have only one candidate, obviously, this won't be many discussions. But as said before, we are expecting the nominations coming in then the upcoming weeks. The question, who starts first? So we set also for the official website the order on the website. So far we have only one, so obviously it's on top of the list, but we put it then by alphabetical order. With regard to the hearings, again, it also depends on some of the surrounding situation, rooms, translation, how long interpreters can work, to split a day in 2 hearings per day. But if you have 8 candidates, it's totally different as if you have 2 or 3. So the list of the final hearings will obviously involve with regard to the nominations. With regard to the straw polls in the Security Council, as I said, the Security Council indicated in the joint letter what their timeline is for their deliberations with regard to July. I'm not a member of the Security Council, but as you, I've also heard that there were intensive discussions between P5, E10, with regard of the different roles. So I expect it to be very interesting debates in the Security Council, as I also expect it to be very interesting debates in the General Assembly. And this is a whole sense about having a selection process that it's very interesting and intense, and everybody can make their own picture whether he or she is the best candidate to fit our charter, the principles, and also the 21st century. I mean, with new and modern techniques, where we have a civil society, a young generation who unfortunately doesn't read every newspaper article you're writing, but is very active on social media. I mean, there are new parts now we have to address as well when we say in our speeches we are serving all the people around the world, serving all humanity. So I'm looking forward to a very, very interesting debate, and especially from civil society engagement, also bringing in the aspect of having a Secretary General, which is also the Secretary General of a younger generation, which informs himself very differently than generations before.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, I see your other hands. We're going to, Pam, Desi, and then I had your question as well, and then we'll do another round. Yes.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam President. It's Pamela Falk from U.S. News and World Report. Your presentation this morning talked about, and you said today as well, right now, the main threats, which seem unusually high on peace and security, climate development, all of the main issues you talked about. Some of us have been around to see the fortunes of the UN go up and down. But my question to you is the big picture question: how existential do you see some of the threats to the UN right now? Do you think it will be overcome? Do you see it as, I mean, you've been intensely hands-on in this role. What do you see? And as a subsidiary question of that, are you hearing about the U.S. Possible contribution to the mandatory budget? I mean, there was a $2 billion contribution to the voluntary budget, but we're, I don't know, rumor mill that there might be something else. Are you hearing anything about that? Thank you.
You might have heard me saying before that I'm an optimist and the glass is always half full. Otherwise, you should not be in international diplomacy. Even sometimes the glass looks half empty. But you might have also noticed a bit different tone in my priority speech, because in the last 2 weeks, it was a bit more difficult for myself to just say, well, the glass is quite half full. If we are seeing, and I said this also very openly this morning, more and more member states, including P5 member states, not in line with the Charter anymore, if not to say in open contradiction to the Charter. And it's not only me as PGA, as I'm speaking on behalf of the member states, but so many also member states were so crystal clear in this hearing today. Our Charter is no optional menu. There is no cherry picking from the Charter. Article 2 is very, very clear. The right of sovereignty, of territorial integrity, counts for every member state, no matter how big or small, on which continent they are lying. But as I've experienced myself with my background from the European continent 4 years ago, that growing up as a woman, 40 years old, having had the great fortune to always live in peace, just remembering how important the international order, the international family, the United Nations was for my own country to reunite. This would not have happened without the United Nations, the trust of other member states, that what my country did before would never happen again. And then realizing in the midst of my life that what I just took as granted, that I always live in peace, I have to explain to my children again what it means to not just go to school and learn math or English, but to be afraid every time you walk to school that you would never come back because drones are hitting your school or your home. So this existential situation, which many people faced in Europe 4 years ago, which unfortunately many people have faced on other parts around the world during their whole lifetime, because they have seen the breaches of Article 2, unfortunately, before, or they have faced the civil wars in their lifetime, was already a sincere situation for the United Nations. But now seeing also that we have this same question on the Latin American continent. I was meeting a couple of PRs from the Latin American continent in the beginning of this year, so the first days of January. And the same question which I had in my mind, how do we explain to my children what unpeaceful times or even war actually means, is now a question they ask themselves. And the same question, would other member states stand up for our sovereign right and for our peace or not? This, in my point of view, yes, is another step in our history and also the history of the United Nations, which underlines that these are definitely no ordinary times, they are even existential times. And the question how existential they are depends on the member states. The UN is the sum of all 193 member states. And if a couple of member states do not obey to the Charter and the principles anymore, we have seen that throughout history. But we have always seen that the vast majority was crystal clear, saying that we condemn this, that they stand united. Sometimes because we are living in a real world, this took a while to end wars and to come back to peace. But it was always the joint commitment of the majority of member states. And this is why I call today so strongly on the majority, the vast majority of member states, to stand up every single day. Because as we have seen also over the last 2 weeks, the call has not been there from all 193 to stand up for the Charter and its principles. And this is why this is a decisive moment. If we allow more and more member states, if we allow more and more P5 member states to breach a Charter and we just watch and see, then no country on earth can sleep in peace anymore.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Desi, I had your question. Ibtasan, I had your question as well. And then we have one here. Okay, we'll see what we can get to. Desi, go ahead.
Okay, Madam President, Xu with China Central Television. A follow-up actually to Pam's question. You just answered her, said if a couple of member states do not obey to the Charter and the principle anymore, you have other member states express vocally about this. Now, these, what you mentioned, a couple of member states, they are very, very, very key member states. They are not respecting the UN Charter, international laws. They are not paying their regular budgets. In that sense, they would damage the UN. So how can UN protect itself from this kind of damage, and not even let alone the world?
To put it very short, to find the resolve not to give up. I mean, there is this famous quote from one Holocaust survivor. For evil to prevail, it only needs good men to do nothing. And this is exactly where we are standing right now, at a crossroads. The member states and the world by this has to decide whether they are standing up, whether they are standing up to do the right thing, even though it's hard, even though if they are facing heavy, heavy headwinds. And this means not that we have suddenly the magic tool to say, and now everybody is complying with the Charter anymore. It was hardly a day in our 80 years history where everybody in 100% fulfilled the Charter, not regarding equal rights for women and men. There's no single country even where we have to fulfill it 100%. So it's not about perfection, but it's about doing the right thing. And this means also to finding alternatives. You mentioned the liquidity crisis. We can complain day and day about it, and it's factually wrong to not pay your contributions. We have even articles in the charter if you do not pay over time, but it's quite a long time and it's very complicated legally, but you even might lose your voting rights. But this means we don't have to wait and see in between how our institution is just crumbling apart, but to find alternative. And this is what we did, especially the SG, and I really commend his work also with regard to, this was a further question of the 2 billion being paid, or at least being announced to be paid. But we have seen also for the peacekeeping missions, if only part is being paid, then we had to reduce peacekeeping missions. And this means less peace around the world. And we had to find alternatives, and the strong calls for other member states to jump in. Again, I totally understand, also being in government before, that some governments would say, but this is not just if some are not paying, and then we have to pay more. But everybody has to ask themselves, what is less harmful? If we have to close, for example, peacekeeping missions in total, then it's not just if others paying more than they are supposed to pay, but maybe it's less harmful than having no peace missions anymore in certain regions, and we just have the increase of wars and crises going on, and more refugee flows, and more refugee flows means also more burdens on other countries' budgets again. So this is not the time for easy solution, but it's a time for creative solutions of those who want to support and stand up for this institution and the system. And there are other, because again, speaking about the glass being half full, I mean, there are also positive trends, and we should not forget about it. And this is why I did a very intense speech today on saying we are at the crossroads, but I'm still believing that we can take the right turn, because we have seen that others stood up. We have seen voluntary contribution in certain areas. We have seen how UNICEF is building schools in conflict areas. We have seen that the possibility that also for UNICEF, for example, you can contribute as an individual, as a person. This is a model which is, for example, not possible for every agency and for every part. We have also seen that in some aspect, like for artificial intelligence, the United Nations system is very open for public-private partnership. In other parts, the United Nations system is very closed. Well, this doesn't make sense. And it also hinders in some parts that more private money could be mobilized. So when I'm speaking about we have to find a creative solution, it doesn't only mean looking at member states, but it also means how we can use in the 21st century, or even like the first quarter of the 21st century, other tools we have now at our hand to fill these financial gaps. This counts also for digitalization in this building. I mean, we could save a lot of money if we would use AI with regard of the duplications of resolution. And this is, for example, it sounds very boring and very nitty-gritty, but this is a big part of workstream 2, how to make our work in the General Assembly more efficient with modern techniques, so we can save a lot of money there as well, which then could be used for other parts in the system which are really life-saving.
So just being aware of the time, we can take 2 more, and then we'll see where we are. So can I get the 2 questions? Ibtisam, very quickly, and gentlemen, you had your hand up, so your question.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Ibtisam Azam, Al Arab Al Jadid newspaper. As you remember and probably know, the Israeli government have passed several laws in the last few years, including a law that bans the operation of UNRWA. And in the occupied Palestinian territories, including East Jerusalem. So my question, and since the UNRWA mandate, it's a UN agency, the mandate of UNRWA, it's a GA mandate that was also renewed recently. So my question is, what do you think that the GA should do in order to make sure that the mandate is carried out?
Okay, thank you. And a question from you.
This is Namo Abdullah with Rudao Media Network. Thank you very much, Madam President, for this briefing. In recent days, we've seen attacks by Islamist rebels in Syria against the Kurdish forces. the same men and women that the world relied on to defeat the Islamic State. And you were foreign minister when they were doing that. According to the United Nations, more than 100,000 people have been displaced from predominantly Kurdish areas. So my question is, since you quoted that Holocaust survivor, that for evil to prevail is for good men to not do anything, given the sacrifices the Kurdish people made in the fight against ISIS, do you believe the world has a moral obligation not to abandon them? Thank you.
Well, as I said also in the other exchange we had, and I find this even more important these days, human rights and humanity is indivisible. So this means it doesn't matter if we are speaking about one ethnic group or the other ethnic group, about Kurds, about Christians, about Muslims, about people, Rohingya people or others. Every person on earth has the right that we are not shying away and that we are not closing our eyes when human rights violations are happening, and that we are holding those accountable. The challenges, especially if we are sitting here in a building in New York, is always that we are not on the ground. And what I said positively about social media and modern technologies before, I mean, there's also a dark side. Here in the room, yeah, and we had also discussions about the situation in Gaza, and I'm being recast on these quotes again, but I said also in the past, always, I cannot judge on this podium here what's happening somewhere else on the world, especially if we have seen, unfortunately, that many, many times things where some people pretended this happened or that happened. So this is why, and it is so important that we have the independent mechanism, that the first thing for defending human rights is access to international organization. It's access for the UN, it's access for media to report what's going on. So then we can also hold people accountable. And I can only underline what has been said also from the SG and the other UN organs with regard to the situation in Aleppo and around, where have been reported displacement of Kurdish people. We have seen that there have been attacks on civilians, that civilians, obviously including Kurdish people, have to be protected under all circumstances. And I strongly urge all parties to return to dialogue and negotiations. We have seen that in the last days. And this means also that the Syrian-led peace process, as I said in the past, must include every group, every ethnic group also in Syria. And obviously the officials, the government, the president of Syria bears a responsibility to ensure that all groups are not being included in the peace process, but that all people in Syria are being protected. With regard to UNRWA, we have had the debate in the General Assembly, and I was again also giving lately a statement on UNRWA, where I've been very clear, and I can underline it again, that I'm deeply concerned about the recent legislation passed by the Israeli parliament targeting UNRWA, because UNRWA, again, as we know from all the UN bodies, plays a crucial role to reach civilians in Gaza, especially with regard to education and health services. So if we are following on the New York Declaration, which is also very clear on the role of UNRWA, if we are following also the advisory opinion with regard of the ICJ, it's crystal clear that it needs UNRWA from the humanitarian side, but it's also a legal obligation to allow UNRWA to work. Under international law, including the Convention on the Privileges and Immunities of the United Nations, it is also very clear that UNRWA premises remain United Nations premises and are inviolable and immune from any form of interference. So it's not only the humanitarian side and the need for the people in Gaza to receive also the support from UNRWA, but it's also the legal obligations the state of Israel and the Israeli government has with regard to the premises of UNRWA in Jerusalem and above. And I'm very thankful to the SG that he has been so clear also in the letter being sent out to the member states. And again, this is up for all the other member states. It's about the funding of UNRWA, to continue the funding. It's about speaking up that we need UNRWA. And it's also about the issue whether we take our own rules, and this includes the legal compliance for host countries having international organizations in their home countries to comply with these premises, which are crystal clear.
If I can just quickly follow up quickly, but that's all great and good, but as a matter of fact, on the ground, the Israeli government is not listening to all the calls, international calls, including the UN. The question is, do you believe that, for example, what's happened, for example, with South Africa, when the General Assembly suspended its membership, apartheid South Africa, do you think that something similar should happen with Israel? Thank you.
I just want to make a note that that has to be our last follow-up. Unfortunately, we're now out of time, and so I'm so sorry if you didn't get to ask a question, but we will finish on that note of should there be further steps taken by the Security Council or by the General Assembly? By the General Assembly with regards to Israel. That's your question. Should there be further steps?
It's clear.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Well, the General Assembly has been clear because the General Assembly renewed the mandate of UNRWA until 2029 to meet the needs on the ground. And I think it's also very important that we underline every time that UNRWA is more than Gaza. UNRWA is also the support in other countries around us with regard to Jordan, with regard to Lebanon, with regard to Syria. I'm saying this because, unfortunately, I also faced discussions where it was not clear for everybody and for every government that we are speaking about a bigger role. Yet, obviously, also for the people in Gaza, the role of UNRWA is indispensable. But we are facing also other situations. I mean, I named them before, the harsh violation of Article 2 of the Charter, where unfortunately member states of these institutions, including P5 member states, are not in line with their obligation, be it with different agencies, payments, or be it that they breach the Charter by themselves if they use of force against other member states. And this is a situation where the General Assembly cannot just say, okay, we have our magic tool to end it. It can stand up, it can continue its work, and I mean, this is also the truth. UNRWA is still working, even though the situation is very harsh. It's not what it should be on the ground, and this is due to the continuous support of member states saying we continue our payments, we continue our UNRWA payments for Gaza, so we enable also that UNRWA can comply with its obligation. And as we have seen in the parallel processes, we have the New York Declaration, then we have the peace plan for Gaza, which has the support of the Security Council, but also with today, where we are having now the announcement of the Palestinian-led authorities on the ground. This again has underlined, if it's Palestinian-led authorities on the ground, it's obviously the need, the cooperation to continue also on the ground with UNRWA.
All right. Thank you all so much.
Ask on Iran, it shouldn't be a question.
Stefano, I'm so sorry we don't
But
have
it's
the time she
is
has
the
to-
issue of the day. I mean,
Well, yes, if you had raised your hand earlier and gotten one in, I'm sorry. But please, Stefano, come and see me and we will also chat to see if we can